on Monday. So, today I want to talk about one particular topic that I see a lot of misconceptions about, and I wanted to clarify. And I will also explain to you why those are misconceptions and how we could remove them. And the topic is taking responsibility. I talk about this a lot with my clients, and I honestly, personally think that feeling powerful, feeling in charge, feeling like we can do all the things, all start with taking responsibility. But because of those misconceptions, we don't often do that, or we do that in the way that's not really useful. And therefore, let's talk about 7 ways I have noted down. So I will be looking at my notes of 7 ways how we are not really utilizing taking responsibility tool that we have in the most powerful way. So let's start with the first one. Taking responsibility means we need to blame ourselves. This is the first misconception that I keep observing in my clients. And the example that I wanted to give you from one of my clients is that she is a manager, and she was saying that if my if the colleagues or whoever who needs to be doing certain things, if they're not doing it, then I feel responsible. Excuse me. And therefore she ends up blaming herself a lot for other people's um, actions that they didn't finish or they didn't achieve the thing, and therefore she ends up feeling like, oh, I'm responsible, I'm supposed to do something about it, but I am failing, and therefore she just keeps um, blaming herself, right? So that's not how we want to use the responsibility, because if we are in the self blame game, then we don't really have energy to do anything about it, to actually solve the situation not only in the short term, but solve it in a systemic way, right? So therefore, taking responsibility does not mean we need to blame ourselves or blame the other person, but understand where in that chain things didn't work and how we can make it work again. The second one is taking responsibility means taking responsibility for other people's feelings. And this keeps coming up so much so that I probably coach almost every client on this. And the way we do that is the classic example of if I say this, they will feel this way, therefore let me not say it, or let me just keep being nice, even though that will not solve the problem, or keep avoiding things or saying things. And that's when we take a responsibility for other people's feelings and we keep ignoring our own feelings. And therefore, we stay in this um, resentment, toxic positivity without really actually solving the problem, right? But taking responsibility means that we actually have that conversation with the other person, no matter what we're afraid they will feel, because our goal is not to offend them, our goal is not to hurt them, our goal is to solve the problem together. And how can we do that in the respectful, understanding, compassionate manner, instead of doing to ourselves all of this, like avoiding things or being nice, being resentful, and being uncomfortable in all those situations. Let us be uncomfortable in the situation of having the conversation with the other person, where we take responsibility for what we're going to say, how we're going to feel, and we also trust that the other person takes responsibility for their feelings, but we still manage to solve the problem. The third misconception is taking responsibility means not showing up until the end, right? So the examples that I have seen is that we take the responsibility, whether it's at work or for our personal lives, and we go and pursue something, and then we try to do this, and then it doesn't work, and then we just have a very good reason, or we just inclined to just give up on it, right? But what if we actually take responsibility not only for trying once or trying twice, but rather for creating that outcome, rather for doing everything within our power to get to the end, so that at least in the end we feel like we have done all of the possible ways that we could, and we feel good about it even if we failed, instead of keep wondering whether we could have done something more, keep wondering if we gave up early, keep wondering whether that was the right decision, right? And those type of um, like overthinking energy is just going to eat us up. Therefore, my suggestion is, let us take responsibility to go to go all in and do the thing and go to that outcome, to go to that to do at least everything within our control possible, so that we feel good about it even if we fail, right? That way we can not only build the muscle of taking responsibility for what we're doing, but also we take responsibility for dealing with the failures and going all the way until the end. The fourth one is, taking responsibility means it's going to be hard or it's going to be impossible, right? So a lot of the times we're afraid to take responsibility, or maybe the some of the examples I have seen is that some of my humanitarian clients, they don't want to go and take up the role that's higher than what they're having currently, because of the fear that it will be hard, there will be a lot of things to do, or it's going to be impossible, or whatever it is, right? But the opposite is that if we don't grow, if we don't continue moving to the next responsibility, then we feel like we're not really utilizing our intelligence, our experience, our expertise in the way that's very useful to us. And therefore, we feel the stuckness, or we feel like we're just outgrown our role. And therefore, we will be struggling in that space, right? So instead of struggling in that space, why not struggle in the new role of growing, in the new role of making the impact we want to, or making different impact we want to, so that we have this feeling of we're going somewhere into the future of building something, into the future of growing somewhere or going somewhere, instead of just feeling like we need to cope with how we're just so tired or annoyed or bored with our current role, excuse me, that doesn't allow us to grow, right? So the fifth misconception about taking responsibility is that we are not responsible for our results, or we're not responsible for our feelings, or we're not responsible for our actions. So one of the ways that this comes up a lot is in interview settings, is that like in job search, right? So we go for a job search, and then the like immediately if we see certain signs or certain indications that this position is already was meant to be for someone else, or if we believe that the panel members didn't like us, then we just have this like internal a bit giving up feeling, and we don't really take responsibility for how we could still go all in and create the result we want to, how or what are the things we could say that maybe could outweigh whatever else they may have in plan. How we could do all the things possible so that we get so much better at creating the desirable results we want to, instead of, oh, it doesn't depend on me, right? Instead of it, I did my best already. Because think about it, is like, when do you start saying that I did my best? And what if you challenge yourself to say, you can only do your best until you have the outcome? I would love to. Like, I always challenge myself to say, what if like, my level of doing my best is when I get the outcome? If I got the outcome, that means I have done my best. And if I didn't, then I may have done some other things, but I didn't really do all the things. And And that comes from my belief that if I do all the things that's necessary, I will definitely get the goal, even if maybe not this goal, but something else even better, maybe. But for that to happen, I'm ready to take responsibility for what actions I'm taking, what energy I'm taking, or I'm in to go to that interview. For instance, if I were to go to interview, right, what energy I would be in, how would I um, behave, how would I show up. I could take the responsibility for all of them. What are the things I'm saying? When they are saying something, how am I reacting to that? How how I'm reacting and how do I want to react, right? So I start looking at all of these, taking responsibility for whatever the result that I created currently. Let's say I didn't get the job interview, right? Then I would say, okay, I'm taking responsibility for creating this result, not from a blame perspective, not from oh my God, what have I done? But rather getting curious as to, okay, this is my result currently. Even if my brain wants to say, well, it didn't really depend on you, it depended on all the panel members, and they just didn't like you, you can't do anything about it, right? My brain wants to go there. In other words, trying to control other people's behaviors, other people's feelings, and I know I can't do that. Therefore, I always take the shift to, okay, what might have I done that created this result? And getting curious as to what might have I said that created this result. And then getting curious as to, here I could improve. Here is I could do something about it. And that way, I don't entertain myself in the how they couldn't like me, why they didn't like me, how could they, and all of this drama I don't really go into. And even if I do go into, I always remind myself, okay, let's go back to evaluating what I might have done that I can do something about it, so that for the next interview, at least, I know how to say things or how to shift my energy or how to say the things in the way that is more articulated or more clear, all of these things. And that gives me so much power, so much agency to be learning from what has happened instead of staying in their minds of how they didn't do this and then didn't do that. And therefore, I will not be taking responsibility for others' feelings or actions, but I will be taking fully responsibility for my actions and how that resulted in the thing that I have. And notice that when we do that, or when I say that, your brain might rebel a lot to say that, of course, it doesn't depend. It's the structural issues, it's systemic issues. There's certain unfairness, and be as it may, and probably you're right, it's true. But also notice that focusing on those things will probably make you more frustrated, will probably make you lose your energy, feeling drained, and being upset about other people's behaviors that you cannot control. Therefore, if you don't want to be upset about those things, then this taking responsibility for whatever results you created in that interview, in that pursuit of changing your job, in that transitioning, and then every time you look at how you could have done differently, you feel more powerful. But if you keep focusing on the structural and systemic issues and on other people, even though they're valid, and unless you are someone who's working on changing them, then ask yourself if it really makes sense to be focusing on them, right? So if you focus on them, then you'll probably feel more powerless, and that will influence your pursuit of getting the next job or the interview, and it will make your whole process very draining. So the sixth misconception, excuse me, about taking responsibility is taking responsibility or taking away responsibility from other people. This is what I have noticed that some of my clients tell me is that we take away other people's responsibility, right? So in some ways, it might be micromanaging tendencies that we have. So we may just say, oh, I will just do it better, faster. I will do it in this way. You will never do it the way that I want to. And then we take over other people's responsibility. But notice that the consequences of it, when we take away other people's responsibility, what we create is we create more impunity in some way. We create more frustration in other people's lives. We belittle them. We take away their agency, and the like the it has so much cost of us taking away other people's responsibility instead of holding them accountable, holding them responsible for what they're supposed to do, and holding ourselves accountable, responsible for what we're supposed to do, and making those lines very clear. And there are many ways you can do that, but I just want you to notice that how or what are the times when you might be babysitting other people or wanting to take away other people's responsibilities. Like, you will know immediately when you're doing it, especially when you tell yourself you will do better, you will do faster, or you just know better how to do things. The other person does not know the context or whatever it is. Notice that, is that the best way to do things? Or the other thing that I noticed from talking to one of my clients is that someone made the mistake in the team, and the supervisor took over that function, the task, and then the supervisor started doing it, and then saying that I don't trust this person anymore. But notice what the consequences of that action for the supervisee who made the mistake, right? So now that supervisee probably is thinking that I messed up and I shouldn't have made the mistake, even though making a mistake is part of our human life. And the supervisee feels terrible for losing the trust, even though we always can give second chances to people, third chances. We always, like, the best way to rectify a mistake is allowing that person who committed the mistake to actually fix the same mistake. That way, we allow that person to feel better about themselves, to make that mistake better, learning from it, and also learning that for the future, that person will likely not do that mistake. But if we are taking away their responsibility of the work as a supervisor, for instance, right, then the supervisee feels like, okay, I am out of here, or I don't really want to do anything about it, and losing all the belief. And then as a supervisor, we send the message that we don't tolerate mistakes, that we mistake means distrust and severe consequences, and we are better than them to be doing this now because we took away their responsibility. Now we're like, we feel maybe good about it, but we're sending the message to the other person that we are better at fixing the mistakes, or we are good at even not committing a mistake, right? So it gives a lot of wrong messages, and we do not want to do that. So therefore, the misconception of taking away other people's responsibility is an easy fix is not easy. It's not the way we can do things, because it has such severe consequences. Therefore, the best way would be in that moment to say, okay, they have committed this mistake. Now let's explore with them how they can also solve that mistake, and we trust them that they will. And then they will fix the mistake, and then they will feel good about it, about themselves. We will feel good about that we have trusted them. Everyone wins. And the seventh misconception about taking responsibility is, when we say we need to take responsibility, we feel like we're being blamed, and we feel like we are being um, yeah, I think blamed is, or accused, or blamed probably is the better word, blamed, and we don't want to be, right? So the occasion that I can think of is that oftentimes in the organizations we talk about work-life balance, and then we talk about how a lot of the times there are these statements that says taking care of yourself, taking care of your well-being, as much as organizations can try to do many things, but it's their personal responsibility. And when we hear that as employees, right, we hear that, we get mad about it. We get mad about how the organization is not doing enough, how the organization is responsible, and they're not assuming their responsibility, and they're just shifting the blame on us. And I can so understand and feel that, especially when we know that there are certain systemic issues in the organization. And if it wasn't for those systemic issues, then maybe we wouldn't even have to take care of ourselves in that way that we are now required to do that, right? So totally understandable. But at the same time, no matter what the organization tries to do or does not try to do, whatever the situation may be, the taking responsibility for our well-being, if it doesn't lie within us, then we are basically saying that we are like we are shifting our knowledge, wisdom, or what we know, what's best for us, to someone else, right? But we don't want to do that because other people don't know what's best for us, right? For us individually, I mean. Other people, especially organizations, don't know what's best for us. We know what's best for us. So while I totally agree with you that we need to work on certain systemic, oppressive, whatever the patriarchal systems that we want to work on to make them better, to make them equal, to make them just, and all of those things, that we continue working on them. But in the meantime, we need to be taking care of ourselves no matter what, right? We can't just wait for the systems to be all and perfect so that then we can start saying, well, then now we can do something about our personal wealth or personal health, emotional well-being, right? So therefore, no matter what's happening with the organization or whatever they're trying to do, not trying to do, it's always us who can and should, in my opinion, take responsibility for how we take care of ourselves, and how we take care of ourselves in the way that we don't allow ourselves to go to burnout or depression or all the other severe consequences that have such negative impact on our quality of life, right? So recognizing that, and like not only recognizing but also always deciding that we are in charge of individually taking care of ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, that will always put us in a good position to be fighting for the systemic changes, whatever the ones that we want to have. But if we just keep abdicating that responsibility to the organization, then while we are maybe fighting for that systemic changes, which will probably take a long time, we will not know how well it will go and all the things that our emotional and mental health and physical health suffer. And that I think no one wants, right? So therefore, taking responsibility for our well-being, no matter what's happening with the organization, no matter who is doing what, I think a priority that we can always hold for ourselves accountable, excuse me, and keep working on them. And at the same time, if we want, keep working on the systemic issues. So, my dear, so these are the misconceptions that I have been seeing, and I have clarified what they are and why they are misconceptions and what's the alternative. And if you want to work on this, absolutely, this would be the time to do that, because as we're coming to the next year, we can start learning how we can take responsibility for creating the results we want to, for stop blaming ourselves for things that we don't even need to be blaming ourselves for, right? And feeling powerful and to be doing something about our situation instead of feeling so powerless and so exhausted and drained that we just don't like what we're doing or where we are. And that's how we just spend our time at work or in our lives. And eventually we'll just get so tired of it. So instead, let's start working on taking responsibility for all the things that we can to create the life we want to. So come coach with me. I would love to do this work with you. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.